welcome back to another episode of the Rooted Soul podcast series. We are in episode 15, and the number 15, when added together, is the number 6. And in esoteric and spirituality, number 6 can represent our sacred science, represent a human being, or us in the physical form. And so I think that's very fitting for the energy we're going to talk about today, the Devil card. I've been looking forward to getting into this energy. The Devil card is, I think, often misunderstood, and is used as a symbol of fear and hell and dark. But in truth, it holds the keys to freedom. And so in this conversation, we are going to be exploring the history and origins of the Devil Tarot card. We're going to be discussing it from the contrast of the European versus African spirituality concept, as well as get into some of the other topics that I usually talk about when discussing an energy, like the correspondence, spiritual lessons, and etc. So I am looking forward to us talking about this energy. And as always, if you have any wisdom, your own personal experience, just added input to add to the conversation, please share in the comment section. We are a community on a collective healing journey. So as I was saying, I was really looking forward to getting into this energy, the Devil card energy, because there's so many misconceptions about the devil. I want to speak about the devil energy from an African spirituality concept. The devil energy is something we all possess within us. You've heard me talk about this before, like all energies are within us. We are divine beings having a human experience. And so from the African spirituality concept, there is the higher and lower self, and the human experience is about balancing the two. And when I say the African spirituality concept, that there is a higher and lower self, I mean this from the concept of a human. There are layers to us, meaning we have the physical form, but we also have a spiritual layer and a soul layer, and et cetera, et cetera. And so from this physical form within us, we carry this energies of higher and lower self. And in this human experience, like I was saying, is about balancing the two. Like, so for example, I'm Jamila, and in this moment in time, right, like I am having an experience as Jamila, but once my experience ends, like when I transition, my body will yield itself back to the earth, but my spirit continues to live on. You know, we've learned this in science that energy never dies. It's not created or destroyed. It just keeps transforming. But I think it's important to note that what my energy will return back to is unknown. We have a lot of different philosophies and theories around what happens when after death, right? But I don't know anyone who's come back and told me. So at that part is the mysterious part, or the mystic part of life. But we do know that energy is not created or destroyed. It just keeps transforming. So if you have any comments or wisdom that you want to gain, that you can share that we can gain from your journey are around these concepts, again, please share in the comment section. But the devil card has to do with usefulness. And usefulness has to do with many things. Usefulness with the wisdom that you're gaining, usefulness with the intuition that you're receiving, usefulness with what you're learning, usefulness with how you are using your time and space. Like, how are you using this human experience that you are having as yourself, right? Usefulness with what you do with the information that you receive from like wisdom or our elder advice, like when somebody gives something to you, like usefulness. Like this devil card energy has to do with how are you using things or not using things. So the devil's energy has to do with this, and that's what we're going to get into today. So I want to first start with a little bit of history about this card because I think it's going to be important as we have a dialogue about it. So the devil was chosen as a symbol to embody the Christian concept of evil. When the origins of tarot cards were developed. And so these concepts of evil, temptation, heresy, and everything condemned by medieval society, such as lust, power, obsession, and forbidden pleasures. So this choice reflected the moral universe of the Catholic Church during the Middle Ages. And during that period, there was a strong dichotomy between a good God and evil, the devil. And so the devil's symbolism in tarot originated in a Europe dominated by medieval Christian thought. And I think that's important to know when we talk about the devil energy and this misconception around what this energy really represents. And I wish there was another word that we could use, and maybe we can find one as we go into the contrast of the European versus the African concepts around it. And so, and maybe we can pull out or find another word to identify it than the word that's being used to represent the energy. And so that leads us into these compare and contrast of the concepts. And so from a European concept, the devil energy represents bondage and enslavement, being chained to desires, addiction, or materialism, temptation, illusion, repression of the unconscious, indulgence, fear, the use of fear and shame as control mechanisms. Again, this is all rooted in Christian demonology, where the devil is a personification of evil, temptation, and a separation from God, with this dualistic framework of good versus evil or God versus Satan. But in contrast, from an African spirituality concept, there is non-duality of good and evil. Unlike Christianity, African traditions often view evil not as an absolute external being, but as imbalance, misuse of power, or disconnection from community, cosmic order. Some words that are used are Ma'at, or Ashe, Ubuntu. And so you've heard me talk about in some of my other podcasts about how everything is about balance. And part of our healing journey as the global majority, as the Afro diaspora, is finding our way back to balance. And a lot of us are out of balance because the structure of society is based off of something that is not part of nature or universal flow. And so you can off the bat see the difference. Like it's just about balance. Spirit is everywhere. All beings, ancestors, nature, deities, like the Orishas or the Vodun, carry vital force, and spirituality is about alignment and balance, not moral condemnation. Another one is the contrast is trickster forces. So instead of a singular devil, African traditions have trickster figures like a Shu or a Nancy. I don't know if you've ever heard any of the African fables around Anansi, Legba, who challenge humans to learn, grow, and confront their shadow aspects of themselves. So the trickster is not evil, but a teacher through disruption. And then another one is personal responsibility. And misfortune often comes from broken taboos, neglecting rituals, ignoring ancestors, or greed, not from a devil figure imposing temptation. And that is something that is very much entrenched in African spirituality, this personal responsibility, right? Like where you have to hold yourself accountable for the choices that you are making as a divine being on this planet. So those are some concepts, some comparing and contrast between the concepts from the European concept and the African concept around this devil card and devil energy. So the correspondence, the devil energy aligns with the zodiac sign Capricorn. And Capricorn is an energy that has to do with usefulness. Also, Capricorn energy in some spaces is symbolized by the high priestess energy, which I talk about in another episode earlier on in the episodes, and how the high priestess is this connection to intuition, right? And so when we talk about usefulness, right, like the Capricorn energy, when you are in balance and harmony, you are able to use your intuition from a place that brings wellness and wholeness into your life. And the planetary ruler of Capricorn is Saturn, and Saturn has to do with discipline, and those hard lessons, right? Those karmic lessons that we learn. And again, Saturn energy is about usefulness too, because discipline is there to teach us, and discipline is there to help us to align with ourselves when we're making choices and making difficult and hard choices, right? Again, this all goes back to when I was talking about using usefulness. How am I using this life that I'm given and these energies that I have within me, right? Like how am I having a human experience, being a divine being, having a human experience? Am I using this from a place of wisdom, from a place of wellness? So the element is earth, and earth has a lot to do with roots, right? And the feeling grounded and centered. And I think it's such a powerful element to align with this, because again, when I was explaining the devil energy, that the number 6, which is the 15, the number of the tarot card of the devil, and how 6 in esoteric and in spiritual spaces represents 666, as you've heard 666, like when that is the chemical element of a person, of a human, right? And so earth being where all of this is playing out. And so the element earth, but also the element earth reminds us that we that we have like these opportunities to use ourselves, right, use our talents, like use the space that we've been given. Space meaning as a being, as a being on this planet, I've been given space and time to do things, right? And that earth will not give way to that. Like earth is grounding, earth is roots, and that it won't give way, and that I have like this power to achieve whatever it is I want to set out and achieve in my life. And so that those are some things that can symbolize the element of earth being aligned with this devil energy. And the energy is dense, right? Like grounding. Just a reminder that we really have no need to fear to step out in what our intuition or what our gut is telling us to do. So as we get into the spiritual lessons, I want to also bring into the conversation again these spiritual concepts around the devil energy from an African philosophy, looking at the contrast from the European tarot of the devil. And so this concept of bondage, right? Like, so from a European perspective, bondage represents enslavement to materialism, addictions, and unhealthy attachments. But from an African spirituality perspective, bondage equals a loss of alignment with self and ancestors and nature. Colonization and oppression seen as spiritual bondage. And liberation comes through ritual, community, and remembrance. Another one is temptation, right? And from a European perspective of this energy, it's the devil as tempter, drawing people away from God. But from the African spirituality perspective, it's back to the trickster, right? Eshu, Anansi, testing choices, not evil, but a catalyst for wisdom. Failure to choose correctly brings lessons, not damnation. And I've talked about that, about the cycles, right? And how like we can have mistakes, but if we take the lessons learned from the mistakes, the next cycle around, we are able to use that wisdom. So that's like an example of a difference. Fear and shame, the devil is used for fear and control in the European concept, but from the African spirituality perspective, fear is a distortion. Ancestors guide you to confront fear with courage. No eternal hellfire, and balance can be corrected through ritual healing. Shadow, from the European concept, it's hidden desires, taboo, and sexuality. But from an African spirituality perspective, sexuality is sacred and creative force. That's our sacral chakra, like that Kundalini energy, right? Taboo is contextual and not inherently sinful. So shadow equals unacknowledged energy needing integration into yourself. Coming again back into this balance. Liberation, and how liberation from a European perspective is realizing chains are an illusion. But from an African spirituality perspective, liberation equals realignment with the Ashe, with Ma'at, our Ubuntu. Healing comes through ancestors, ritual, herbs, drumming, dance, and divination. These spiritual lessons that we can gain from this devil energy is about returning back to our origins, finding ways to incorporate more of our African spirituality practices that we come from. Because of colonization, and enslavement, it also created mental slavery, right? And forgetting one's power, identity, and ancestral lineage. And so part of our spiritual lessons that we can gain is about reminding ourselves of who we are and where we come from, right? So when we talk about confronting the shadow, recognizing that this is not something to be feared, right? It's to come into wholeness of self. When we talk about the spiritual, so when we talk about the spiritual lesson of integration, like, again, this is all about returning back to balance, and that true bondage is forgetting who you are as an ancestral divine being. And liberation is remembering your power, aligning with spirit, and walking in balance. So when we talk about if signs that this energy is open and flowing through you versus blockage, um, I think some telltale signs is are are you feeling like energy is open and flowing through you? Do you feel order and balance and harmony in your life, and in the way life is moving for you? Do you find yourself satisfied where there isn't any lingering doubts or shame or obligation around how you use your time and your space? Are you feeling like there are a lot of mistakes in how you are using your time and space, or how you are using lessons that you're gaining along the way, how you're using finances, and how you are using relationships that you are in? So I think a lot of signs to know if this energy is open and flowing through you or blocked is around like this usefulness of life. And are you feeling like there is some usefulness to your life? And so the blockage would be where you're not feeling that, right? Like you're feeling trapped, and you're feeling like you're trapped in toxic cycles of maybe relationships or habits, feeling over attachment to things that, to bring validation to yourself that are not really grounded in something that is meaningful, right? Feeling like a detachment and a sense of lostness around like your spiritual growth. And also like extremities, right? Like, so the unbalancedness. So rather you are denying yourself pleasure and being embodied in yourself, or you're doing the extreme opposite and you're overindulging, which both can lead to a sense of emptiness. So those are some signs around if the energy is open and flowing through you or if it's blocked. So some ways of working to open up this channel of energy and to align with this channel of energy. One that you've heard me mention often is breath work, deep belly breathing to release suppressed tension inside of you. I think in the last one I talked about the alternate nostril breathing. And so there's so many different forms of breathing that one can do. And I'm pretty sure you could probably YouTube that to learn about all of the different kinds. But breath work, sound healing, drumming, to move stagnant lower chakra energy, and then chakra work. And the chakra work would be focusing on like your root and sacral chakra. So balancing grounding with healthy pleasure. Some herbs and plant medicine that can be used is mugwort, which you've heard me, which you've heard me speak about before. It helps with shadow work, because shadow work is so important when we're talking about this card, the Devil card, because again, it allows you to change this narrative around what the devil energy actually really means. And when you're able to do that, then you're able to come into this radical acceptance and unconditional love towards yourself, so that you're able to just see all of you. Because oftentimes shadow work is fearful or scary to do, because around this, like, I don't want to know those, I don't want to know that those things are in me, right? But that's from this concept of good versus bad. But coming from this African spirituality concept of the devil energy, there is no shame, there is no fear, right, to radically accept oneself. And so you can look at your full self and fully, unconditionally love your full self. And then when you're able to do that, then you're able to put some order, balance, and harmony into how you want to use this thing we call life. Another one is the dandelion root, which helps in detoxifying the body and spirit and releasing old attachments. The cacao, which opens the heart and transforms indulgence into sacred ritual. And this last one, well, again, whenever we're talking about herbs and plant medicine, if you're not familiar with using herbs and plant medicine, to speak with a professional around it. If you have any history of physical health issues or mental health issues, to first speak with your doctor. And definitely a disclaimer with this last one, the black cohosh, to use with guidance, but it helps confront deep shadow and hidden trauma. Some yoga practices that can be beneficial is the yogi squat, which is good in opening up the root chakra, right? And allowing you to have some grounding and connecting to that primal energy. The bridge pose, which opens the pelvis and sacral center for release. And then shadow work journaling, free movement dancing, all of these things inviting suppressed energy into awareness and expression. Mirror work is another good one. Look into your own eyes and affirm that I acknowledge my shadow and I reclaim my power. So these are some things that can be done in opening up this energy. In closing, as always, I want to leave you with an affirmation that aligns with this energy that we talked about. This affirmation you can use as part of your ritual and ceremonies. But the affirmation is, I choose love, truth, and clarity over fear and bondage. I choose love, truth, and clarity over fear and bondage. Thank you for visiting The Rooted Soul TV. Please again like, share, and subscribe. If you are in need of additional support on your healing journey, please visit Rooted Soul's website to learn more about our services. And remember, community, to stay rooted, stay whole, and stay in your soul. Ashe.